Williams, quarterback, Southern California.
What's up, Bears fans? Welcome back. I was not prepared for whatever that was, Tim. That threw me off. Tim with the glasses, the upside
bear
down
goggles.
Glasses,
They're bear goggles.
whatever you want to call it. That shit was something. Anyways, pardon my French to begin the episode here, guys, but welcome back as always. Friday night with you here, Willis Twin Towers podcast. Quick reminder, guys, you can always get a hold of us with the email address if you have questions or comments or anything you want to talk about on the show or anything you want us to dig into. That email address is willisTwinTowersPodcast@gmail.com. Please give us a like or follow the channel if you're not already. Subscribe to the channel. We're at Barroom Network here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts from. And as Aldo has on the screen there, the Willis Twin Towers Podcast@gmail, like I said, is the email address. And we are here, like I said, every Friday night live. And we're going to get started here tonight talking about all the stuff going on at the beginning of training camp here. So there's a lot of both. I don't know how to word this properly. There's a lot. I don't want to say there's a lot of negativity because that's pretty common with the Bears, but there's a lot of overreactions. Let's say that going on with the start of training camp here. And I'm not really surprised by it. I mean, it's just kind of how things are typically. We see things going on before the season gets going, and it's for a lot of people, it's an immediate indicator that things are going to be bad. So I don't want to jump on board that ship yet. There are some things that we'll discuss that have been going on that weren't great necessarily. There are some things that have been pretty good that we'll get into as well. So, Tim, do you have anything you want to jump into right off the bat? As far as what's going on with camp or one of the press conferences that's happened in the past couple days, or what you're seeing as far as interaction on Twitter or whatever with people, Bears fans and whatnot, talking about what's been going on?
Let's start with the hottest topic so far in my opinion, it's the hottest topic so far from what I've seen in this Bears training camp. And I'm going to preface it by saying I'm actually going to go back and use, I can't believe I'm doing this, something that you have mentioned multiple times. And that is that typically early in the season and in the preseason and training camp and things like that, the defense typically, more often than not, has the advantage over the offense, especially when you have a brand new offense and you're trying to learn a new scheme. So with that being said, it's easier for the defense to get a hot start and the offense to struggle early on, and that is pretty much the definition of what is happening right now based on what we know from what's being reported at training camp is that the offense has been slow to start. There's been some issues. There's been obviously communication issues. There's been setup issues. There's been just a lot in learning this new scheme. And I want to start this by talking about what happened on Monday. I believe it was my first day of camp. And when everybody reported, which I believe was Monday. Ben Johnson
Wednesday
apparently
was the first day of practice.
Yeah, maybe it was.
Wednesday was the first day of practice.
It's been a very long week for me. But in any case, there was a moment where the first team offense was having an issue getting a play going. And on the first attempt, Ben Johnson goes up, gets in Caleb Williams' face, walks him back to the huddle as he's what looked like he's berating him, just like trying to get him to get this right. Then they blow the whistle dead after the second time. And after the third time, he finally said, enough's enough, and kicked the offense off the field and brought in the second team offense. Now, there's a lot of speculation for this that Ben Johnson, like I just said, kicked the first team offense off the field in favor of the second team offense. And there is debate central swirling over this. It's all over Bears Twitter. It's all over these podcasts. It's all over the place. Okay. Mind you, before I get into any further of this, it was the first day of the team all together running a brand new offense that they've never run together. There's going to be hiccups. 100% there's going to be hiccups. With that being said, I believe Aldo has a clip. This is from Ben Johnson's press conference. I believe it was on Thursday following this, where I don't remember who the reporter was that asked him the question, or maybe he just said it on his own. I can't remember. Maybe he addressed it up front, but he's talking about this moment where the first team offense got pulled off the field. And if you've got that video, Aldo, let's go ahead and cue it up here.
I know some people enjoyed me throwing the first team out of practice. Not the case. We're on a time crunch, as you guys all know. We got 90 minutes there that first day. We're up to 105 here today, so just need to keep things moving on along there, or else other guys weren't going to be able to get their reps. So, but point is, though, we got to be on our P's and our Q's, and every minute, every rep is really valuable as well. So,
not like the way that was perceived out there.
No, I'm good. I'm good. Like it is what it is. You know, our guys, we got to end up executing, getting in and out of the huddle a certain way, and it wasn't that way, and so we'll be better today.
Is that what it was? Just getting in and out?
Yeah,
Is that on Caleb, or is that everybody?
It's everybody. It's everybody. We're learning. We're growing. You know, there's some things from the springtime expected to carry over that was probably one we just don't have any tolerance for anymore. We got too far to go.
Do you find that they're very receptive in those moments too?
Yeah. Everyone, they know it's not good enough, so it's just keep the train moving.
Okay.
Before you continue, first of all, let me just give a round of applause to Aldo on that little graphic there, highlighting the question that was asked by Mark Grody there, because that was freaking awesome, dude. Aldo, if you're going to continue to do that in the future, you're going to have a lot of people happy watching this show. So thank you for that. That was really cool.
100%. Aldo's the man. Aldo takes care of us. And if you guys don't realize this, he is incredibly creative when it comes to these graphics and everything that he does for this network. Super appreciative of that. But to get back to this, my first take is, did Ben Johnson at all look like he was concerned about anything? Absolutely not. You could tell in the look in his face was, this stuff is to be expected. He was not even upset in the moment. Of course he's going to be fiery in this situation, okay? He wants this thing. He said he is a stickler about this kind of stuff. He wants everything to be perfect, or as close to perfect as possible. That's the goal, is to work this. He's going to be very nitpicky, and he's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not strict, but he wants it to look a certain way. And if it doesn't look a certain way,
particular.
Yeah. He's very particular. So if they don't get this thing right, they are going to continue to work on it over and over and over and over and over again until it's right. And good for him. This is something we're not used to seeing. Okay? So I have a couple of comments. Okay? And then I'm going to pass it off to you, Jeff. I'm going to be very frank. For anybody, I don't care what network you work for. I don't care where you report for. I don't care. I don't care if you're national, local, don't care. If you are seriously discussing what happened in that moment and you're actually concerned about where the Bears are headed for 2025, shut up. Just shut up. You're an imbecile. Like, if you're really concerned about that, or you're that concerned about clicks, go do something else. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about your opinion. If you're using that for clickbait, I have no words. It's the first day of a brand new offense. Things are not going to be perfect. They're going to take time. And he explains it here, saying, I didn't even throw them out. We're in a time crunch here. Okay, and I believe that because they're timed at 90 minutes. So if you have 90 minutes, you have to get all three of those offenses on the field and get them in learning the playbook and learning the plays and doing it together on the field. Okay, you don't have time. Break it down. That's 30 minutes at a time. 30 minutes. Now, granted, the first team offense is going to get more time and more reps than the others, but on average, At the most, the first team offense is probably getting 45 minutes to an hour at the very most. You tell me, I don't understand. I don't get it. I'm just so sick of all these stupid negative comments and everybody making a big deal out of literally nothing. You are that bored that you're going to make something out of that? Guys, God forbid this is what you all wanted. This is what you wanted in the media. This is what the players wanted. They wanted accountability. We wanted accountability. And when Ben Johnson gives us that accountability, we're going to piss and moan and whine about it. Like, grow up. Let this thing play out. These guys are professional athletes. Ben Johnson is a professional football coach. This is his job. This is their job. Get it right. Get it right. And granted, it's the first day. It's not going to be right the first day. If it is, great. That's incredible. That doesn't happen in any sport, in any profession, in anything. So pump the brakes. Let this thing play out. And let's see how it is. In the first preseason game, there's going to be bumps in the road. Guys, if by week 5 or 6 of the regular season, we're still seeing a lot of these issues, then we've got problems. But it's day 1 of week 1. Let this thing play out. Jeff.
So quite the tangent there, Tim. So first of all, I'll just say there's a lot to unpack here. So first of all, I'm glad that I don't, for whatever reason, I tend to miss a lot of that kind of talk that goes on X where the fans will be blowing a lot of this stuff out of proportion. I see a lot of the talking heads on X, like the reporters and those of us on Bears Twitter that are very familiar with each other and have a higher following base. Like I see a lot of those people saying things. So I understand that it's out there. I understand this talk is out there, and it's obviously brought quite the response from Tim here. And King says you're his goddamn hero, Tim. So that's pretty funny. But I don't have enough of an opinion on it because I don't see it as much. But and I admittedly don't I see what reporters and stuff say. I don't read comments of when they talk about what's going on at training camp and whatnot. I don't go down and read the comments that are said to the different reporters that people are saying about what has been going on at practice and stuff. So I don't see all that negativity and whatnot. The thing I will say is I agree with you, Tim, to back way up here, what you said at the beginning, and I have been saying this for weeks now. It is no secret that in the NFL, and it's not just in training camp and OTAs and everything like that before the season starts, it's well into the season for some teams. Offenses typically start off slower than defenses do. Defenses typically are ahead of offenses as far as execution. Okay. So, and knowing what they're supposed to do and all that, because it's a little less complicated for the most part, typically. So now that being said, as teams get going offensively, I talked about the Rams last year as a perfect example. I've mentioned these guys lots of times. They started off super slow offensively last year, and by the time the season got going, they ended up being a playoff team because they got it rolling. So, it's all about, sometimes you just got to pump the brakes a little bit. And obviously there's always going to be time to have some kind of concern about things because you want it to look good all the time. Of course you do. But again, this is training camp. This is where you're supposed to make mistakes. And there was a perfect tweet I saw today. And Aldo's actually got a graphic, this too, that I'll read off for you guys in a minute here. J.J. Watt, as you guys know, former defensive player of the year, multi-time defensive player of the year in the NFL. His tweet earlier, I think it was yesterday, said training camp, quote unquote, stats are insane and ridiculous. Used to think it was always just people joking, but now seeing them seriously reported. You have no idea what the purpose of that period is, what the goals are, what the context is, etc. It could be strictly third and long blitz period where every play is skewed to the defense's advantage. Coaches could be asking quarterback to focus specifically on one route concept. D-line may be focusing only on bull rushes one day or just speed rushes for one period. More importantly, practice is for practicing. You're supposed to fail. You're supposed to try new things, see what works and what doesn't work, etc. If you only do what works, you'll never grow, adapt, change. The entire point of training camp is to build and grow towards the season so that you perform your best when the real games start. So, totally agree with that 100%. And the thing we got to think about here also is, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, Aldo, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was on GTF earlier this week. Jason McKee, former Bears fullback, was on with Greg and Aldo talking about how in training camp, a lot of times they will put the defense in advantageous positions so that the offense has to react to whatever is going on around them, or make, to react to the effect. Okay. Or some, the words to that effect. I can't remember exactly what he said, but basically that the defense was put in advantageous positions for the offenses, and the end result would be their benefit, but not in that moment always. So the point here, like Watt said, is you're going to fail. You have to fall flat on your face sometime in order to learn. Now, the goal here is to not keep making those same mistakes over and over and over and over and over again. And as much as many of us love Justin Fields when he was here, that was kind of the issue with him, is he was making the same mistakes over and over and over and over again. So that's what we want to see not going on here with Caleb in the future of this Bears team. So I want to see him nipping this stuff in the bud early. Now, going back to the whole point with, and before I get to this, King, that's a great point. There's another crazy, maybe our defense is just really good. DJ Moore mentioned it in his press conference today, talking about Dennis Allen. Somebody asked him about Dennis Allen and what he's like to go against in practice. He's like, look, man, the defense is never the same in any given play. It never looks the same. So I don't know. We don't know what's coming, and I'm glad I don't have to go up against that defense on Sundays. So I tend to agree with you, King. I mean, the Bears defense might just be a really good unit, and they might be ready to rock and roll pretty quick. You got to remember, there's a lot of vets on this defense. A lot of guys who played high-level football. Montez Sweat has played some high-level football. Jalen Johnson has played high-level football. Jermaine Edwards, TJ Edwards, guys that played high-level football. Andrew Billings. A lot of players on this defense have played high-level football. So, again, like I said before, defenses tend to come together a little bit faster. So, the fact they might be going against a really good defense in practice who happens to be coming together pretty well, that might not look great for the offense in the first place. And as I mentioned before, sometimes they skew it to where the offense is not in an advantageous position in order for them to make adjustments and see things differently. Part of it is like with Caleb in the pre-snap process, right? Getting to the line, getting everybody set, getting the play calling, all that, and then seeing what's in front of him, okay? And then post-snap, deciding where to go with football. Declan Doyle was talking about that in his press conference today a little bit. So it's just one of those things where it takes a little bit more time for that to come together. As I said before, you're going to expect the coaching staff in practice to put the offense in positions to have to adjust. So on the fly, when, in game situations where you're going to get looks that you didn't anticipate, and right in the middle of the play, you're going to have to make an adjustment and decide where to go with the football. So that's part of this process here. So I like it. I mean, I think this is where we're going to have to see mistakes made. And I believe it was Lester Wiltfong. It was Lester, as a matter of fact. I reposted a post that he mentioned today earlier on his X account. And it was something along the lines of, and it was perfect. It was something along the lines of, I don't view Ben Johnson in the same tier as I viewed coming in like Matt Nagy, Mark Trestman, Adam Gase, what was the last guy? With Luke Getsy, Shane Waldron. I don't view him in the same light as these guys because he, quite frankly, as an offensive play caller and innovator, has had far more success than those guys ever have in their careers. So I expect coming into training camp here, I'm not going to have the same kind of reaction to everything going on now as I would have with them, okay? When I see things not going so great now and I see him coming into press conferences, not looking all that concerned about it, I'm not as concerned about it either. But here's the thing. I don't know if you guys noticed too. His eyes look again like he's been working his ass off again, like he's dug deep into film, like he's really getting after it with stuff. And, it's just, to me, it's just a guy who really works hard. I have a lot of faith that they're going to get this thing going in the right direction. Whether it's right away as far as offensively, well, it remains to be seen. We got 6 more weeks of training camp to see how this thing starts to kind of piece together. And they mentioned today also DJ Moore in his press conference, like, we're not getting everything right now. They're just installing like the base stuff right now. And then eventually we're going to start to see more from what's in the playbook and what we can do. And then they're going to start to kind of pare it down to what these guys do the best. And I can't remember who it was that said it. It was either, I want to say it was DeAndre Swift said in his press conference, I think it was yesterday, that Ben does a really good job of playing to his players' strengths. And he was obviously with him in Detroit, and he's with him here again in Chicago. So the fact that he's obviously seeing that in both spots is pretty is important to me anyways, and I expect to see that to continue in the future. So again, I want to see him cater this offense to our guys, and I expect him to kind of tinker things throughout the next 6 weeks to where it best suits our guys. And I have a lot more other stuff I want to dig into as well, Tim, but do you have any other points you want to make before I start to transition to some of this other stuff?
Yeah, I see in the chat too, there's a lot of comments here about Caleb's interceptions at practice, and that's been a recurring theme as, all these interceptions that he's thrown in practice. But what's one thing that everybody has discussed about last year, one thing they wanted to see more of from Caleb Williams? They wanted to see more shots down the field. They wanted to see him take more chances. And that was one of the biggest complaints about the offense last year, was that he didn't take a lot of chances. So, yeah, he only threw 6 interceptions, but he also only threw 20 touchdowns. And those numbers could have been a lot more if we would have taken more deep shots, more chances here, more chances there. It was almost like he was afraid to just trust his instincts and make a throw. Like it was almost like everything was the safe play. And if he's throwing a bunch of interceptions in practice, doesn't that make you guys happy? I'm not talking about you chat specifically, but the media and others. This is what we asked for. We wanted to see him chuck the ball downfield more, take more risks. This is going to happen. Yes, Erica, 100% interceptions are fine in camp. That's what it's for. Use that time to find out what works. And yeah, I'll take a shot here, see if Mike can come down with it, or I'll take a shot here and see if I can fit it in this window. That's how you learn. That's how you find out what you're going to be able to get away with and what you're not going to be able to get away with in a game. So if he throws 10 interceptions in this practice and no touchdowns, I don't care. It's practice. That's what it's for.
And there's 2 really good comments in here from King Book World as well I want to mention here. The first one was about, if you guys haven't seen on Twitter, they were talking about, there's people talking about Jaden Daniels practices too. Daniels has had a pretty rough couple days in training camp too. He had like 5 interceptions in one day. And
probably because they're asking him to read more than his first read. So yeah, he's going to struggle.
Because he played really well last year. And then the other thing he mentions in here, let me see if I can find your comment, King, was people they're talking about everything with the interceptions and whatnot, but they're not talking about the 6 or 7 drops that were reported on today as well. So there was a lot of drops from practice today. It's not all on Caleb. So obviously there's some miscommunication all over the place. There's things going on here. So obviously we need to see some growth from everybody. But again, as I mentioned before, a lot of this stuff is skewed towards them not being in the offense's favor, okay? Because they want to see that growth from them and they want to see them adjust and whatnot. So, but anyways, Tim, any last points on that before I move on a little bit here?
No, and there's a comment in here that's perfect, and it segues me into where I wanted to go with this next. And Erica says, I'm tired of seeing all the start Bajent nonsense. Okay.
He's looked pretty good in camp, though, from what I hear, against the second and third team defense.
Hold on. Yes, that's important. But this is why it's important to me. Tyson Bajent, whom most of us believe is probably going to be the second string quarterback on this team, and most of us are of the mindset that my gosh. Who's the guy they brought in? Longtime veteran. Case Keenum. A lot of people believe that Case Keenum is going to be like the third string, the practice squad guy, the guy that's kind of going to coach guys up. Right now, Case Keenum is working with the second team, and Tyson Bajent is working with the third team. Granted, it was vice versa in minicamp and OTAs, and it's only the first week of camp. But do we think that is there anything to this? Is there anything to speak on the fact that right now, Case Keenum is your second string?
They've been rotating them.
Correct.
That's going on with a lot of the position battles, and we'll get to those in a little bit.
But this is why I want to ask this question. Because typically, in your first week, you're probably going to put the guy out there who you think is going to be in that position to start. and then give him the chance to prove that he's the guy. Now, for instance, at the left tackle position, who lined up at left tackle this week?
Both of them. I know Amagaji was in during team period. I believe it was yesterday, and today was Ozzy.
But who
as far
started
as
day one?
Not quite yet because he's still
Correct.
ramping up.
Correct. Who started day one?
I believe it was Ozzy.
And do we think that that's a good possibility that he's going to win that job? We've talked about this. Now, we don't know what's going on there, but the difference is I think that's a little bit more of a competition battle right now, even more so than that second string quarterback position, because we truly have no idea who's going to be the left tackle right now. No clue who's going to be the starter. But most of us believe Tyson Bagent's going to be the second string. Now, here's why I ask this. And this is something we've speculated a lot. Do we think that maybe this is signaling, it's a little bit of subliminal messaging that possibly Tyson Bagent's on his way out of Chicago? Is it a possibility that they could be trying to work a maneuver now that they've got Case Keenum? Let's give him the second team reps, see how he does. And if Case Keenum can hold down the fort, do we really need Tyson Bagent here when this is our last year of control over him? If we trade him away, we can get some assets. If we wait it out, we get nothing for him.
I just don't know that you're going to get anything that's worth moving him for at this point. He's a good player. And even if he were able to walk next year, I feel like the potential comp pick you could get the following offseason wouldn't be any worse than what you'd be trading him for now. What's he worth right now? A day 3 pick? Maybe. Nobody's going to offer any more than that right now because he hasn't played enough. He hasn't done enough. He's a good player in practice and whatnot. The Bears can tell they got something pretty good there for backup quarterback, but he hasn't done enough for any other teams to be coming out and making, big time offers for him. Otherwise he'd be gone by now, I think, so I see no reason for the Bears to be trying to move on here. I think it's really just a matter of Case Keenum was brought in to help the young quarterback room, in particular, Caleb Williams, to become a pro, learn how to approach the game from a quarterback's perspective, how it should be done, both on and off the field. I think that was a huge part of this. It's not so much, he talked about in that book, the Seth Wickersham book, there was all this talk about how, Caleb wanted help with watching film and stuff, who better to bring in than somebody who's done it at a high level and a guy like Case Keenum to help you figure it out, learn along. And the name of the book, by the way, as Aldo has on the screen, is American Kings, a biography of the quarterback by Seth Wickersham, and it's going to be released on September 9th this year. Thank you, Aldo. What do you want, Tim?
By the way, this is ironic to me, or not. Maybe ironic's not the right word, but it's odd. Did anybody notice the first day of training camp how they selected certain Bears players to hold up their sign? My first day of training camp, my name is, I want to grow up to be, like DJ Moore said, I want to grow up to be Roma Dunze. Roma Dunze said, I want to grow up to be DJ Moore. And then they had like a bunch of other info. Okay. Well, not a bunch of a few other things in there. Did anybody notice who one of the players was that was on one of those pictures? Like they had one of those pictures of, it was Ryan Bates. They only picked like 8 players, I think, maybe 9. And a lot of them were, it was like Tremaine Edmonds, Roma Dunze, DJ Moore, Ozzy Trapillo. There was several, a few, Jaquan Brisker. I'm trying to think of who else they had. And then obviously Ryan Bates. And I'm like, that's odd. Why would you, unless you don't intend on, cutting him or getting rid of him, that's interesting that you chose him for that.
You also have to keep in mind that the Bears media team is not in communication with the front office.
That's very true.
Too,
But why Ryan Bates? It was almost like a trying to tell me something here kind of situation, because of all the other players that they had on there. It's like, these are like legitimate stars on this team or big time starters on this team. And you chose, or rookies, and you chose Ryan Bates in the middle of all that, which it's very odd to me. Like if you saw, put it to you this way, if you would have seen the list of players that was on there, or who all those players were, I think it would have tricked you a little bit too, or made you wonder, like, what? Why Ryan Bates?
It's hard to say why they would have chosen to do that, but
While you're talking, let me see if I can find that post, and I'll tell you who all the players were.
well, I was going to kind of move along here and get into some other stuff. We were talking about earlier how there's some training camp battles and whatnot. So the first thing I want to talk about before we get into like the left tackle deal, which is obviously something that's everybody's got all eyes on. And you mentioned a few minutes ago the backup quarterback deal with Case and Tyson Bagent. There's some other camp battles as well. So the first thing I want to mention here is the running back situation, the running back room. There's a lot of fans out there, a lot of fans, media, a lot of people in general who think that the Bears need to make a move to address the running back room, that it's not satisfactory, going into the season. And Ben Johnson mentioned in his press conference that those guys love to hear that. The guys in the room between Swift and Monangai and Roshan, and I'm sure Wheeler and those guys have part of that too. So he said those guys love to hear that, and it really kind of fuels them. It's helping them play better, helping them get things going. And a couple things I want to mention about this running back room, and I told you guys many times already, like based on what's available in the open market right now, I don't necessarily think they need to really bring in a running back right now per se. If there was a position I wanted them to bring some competition in, more so with somewhere along the defensive line, and they did. They brought in that guy, defensive, the edge. What is his name now? I can't remember now. It's like Passignon, I believe was his name. Is that the right guy that I'm thinking of here? Guy played in I can't remember now. He's the guy that they brought in. You guys have to remind me. I believe his name is something Passignon, and he's an edge rusher, and he's actually played in the past. He's not just like a camp body. He's a guy who's been a rotational defensive lineman in his career. He was hurt a lot last year, but he's a guy who could very well make the team. So that wasn't a bad move. Cheap signing, bring in some legitimate competition who could maybe carve himself out some playing time. So. Like I said, I can't remember what the guy's name is for sure. You guys will have to remind me on that one. But going back to the running back situation, I don't think it's as necessary to bring somebody in here. Carl says all the backs look good right now without pads. Let's see how Swift looks when Edwards is allowed to smack him. He's already dropped 2 passes today. Or he's already dropping passes 2 today. So, I don't disagree with you, Carl. I think obviously when the pads come on is when we're going to see a lot of things from both the offensive line, defensive line, running backs for sure. Because this is when these guys really get their opportunity, is when the pads come on to show what they can do. They have to be able to use their physicality as part of their game. So to know Passignon, who spent the past 4 seasons with the New Orleans Saints, is the guy I was talking about. Thank you, Aldo, for getting that for us. But Tim, I know you got some stuff you probably want to say about this, but just to kind of continue my point here with the running backs, Swift, I think there was an interesting point. If you guys are familiar with Kirsten Tannis on X, she posts a lot of really good stuff. And actually, she's doing work for Sports Illustrated now, writing articles for them. And she's been writing some good stuff. I read one last week about Caleb, and I think it was something, I believe it was called something along the lines of Caleb, will he be the check down king or the king of check downs? And it was a really good read. And a lot of her stuff is really good. She's quite the writer, and she's very intelligent, eloquent, and knows her stuff. So she posted, I think it was yesterday, about DeAndre Swift and his touches under Ben Johnson in 2022 in Detroit, and how the split on his touches were 60% carries, 40% pass targets. Whereas last year in 2024 with the Bears, his splits were 83% carries and 17% pass targets. Quite the substantial difference here. And if you guys watch DeAndre Swift play and know what his strengths are, as we all do, we've seen him play before just with the Bears. This guy he's made his career, made his money in his career, in my opinion, from how well he does in the passing game as a weapon in the passing game. He's a legitimate weapon there. The problem is he doesn't always run the football particularly well, because he doesn't always just hit the hole the way he should. He's always kind of dancing around a little bit. But when you get this guy in space, get him to football and give him some room to work, he's a dynamic freaking athlete now. So that's part of the problem here too. Is I think we're going to see a lot more of that from Ben Johnson, more towards that that skew, that 60-40 split than 83-17 or 87-4, whatever the hell it was. I think it's going to be much closer to that with Swift. So I think he'll be a better player in this offense due just to that in general. And plus, the offensive line is just better too. So I think they're going to open up holes a little bit better for him as well, and the other running backs as well. And another thing I want to talk about with these running backs is Kyle Monangai. There's been talk about this guy with, the Bears drafted, they waited in the draft to get this guy until the 7th round. They passed on some other backs. Many of us have speculated that they missed on Travion Henderson in the 2nd round, who went 38th right before the Bears took Luther Burden 39th. I remember telling Tim during the draft, as soon as that happened, I was screaming, obscenities, motherfucker, screaming at the Patriots, just pissed they took Henderson. He was one of my favorite players in the whole draft. But speaking of Monangai, though, this guy, there's a reason they took him. Okay, so he might not have all the measurables in the world, but I mentioned to you guys before, I can't remember if it was on last week's show. I think it was on last week's mashup with Bare Their Souls that, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Kyron Williams from Notre Dame. When Kyron Williams came out of Notre Dame, very productive player in school, in college, didn't measure out very well as far as the timing, the testing scores and whatnot, and he ended up falling to the 6th round. He had some injury issues as well in college, but I don't think his running back class was quite as deep as this one was, but he still fell to the 6th round overall. That he's been a pretty damn good player with the Rams. Now, Kyle Monangai was in a really deep running back class, okay? And he falls to the 7th round. The thing that's really impressive about him is he's got such an ability that he's shown on tape in the pass protection department, where so many running backs are just afraid in general to stick their nose in there. And that's a big part of being a good pass protector as a running back. It's just the want to. Greg talks about it all the time on his show, GTF. The want to get in there and actually put your nose in there and not be afraid to take on that block. Okay, whether your technique is great or not is another story, but the desire to do it is 90% of the battle. And this guy is not afraid to come after it. So, and Aldo's got a quote here. According to Sports Illustrated, Albert Breer, 2 names beginning to silence doubters: running backs Roschon Johnson, 7th round pick Kyle Monangai. And I did see parts of that article, Aldo. I don't want to give any quotes from it because I haven't seen the whole thing. I need to find it for myself. But there were some interesting tidbits that I saw that other people were talking about, as far as especially about Monangai. But Roschon's another guy who's interesting too. He's a guy who's shown an ability to pass protect. He was the 3rd round or the 3rd down guy for the most part over his first couple years when he was healthy, because he's the guy that could trust the most in that blitz pickup. Well, now you got Monangai, who from all accounts now also has been a really good pass catcher in practice. So if this guy shows an ability to both be a guy who's able to get open in the pass game, be a reliable check down option, and he's reliable in blitz pickup, he's going to find himself a role on 3rd down. And I've also heard coming out of camp that he's shown an ability. He's running the ball particularly well too. He's got really big legs, thick, strong legs. And if you guys have heard me talk about David Montgomery in the past, and you guys have heard me say he's like probably the strongest running back, the strongest legs I think I've ever seen in my life. The guy would get like piles of defensive linemen in front of him at the line of scrimmage and would somehow find a way to get 2, 3, 4 yards. And Monangai is a guy that they're talking about who's got some real strength in his lower half as well. So I'm excited to see that and what it looks like with pads on as well. So I do think that Ben Johnson and his staff are going to get the most out of Roschon as well. I feel like he was a little underutilized the last couple of years. So I think this room is going to be just fine. If somebody gets hurt, that might be a little bit of a concern, but I'm not super worried about it. And King says that the first time Monangai baptizes somebody on a block, he's going to get respect. And I totally agree with that. You get this guy on primetime Monday Night Football against Minnesota on a 3rd down, like 3rd and 7 or something, and he's got like Andrew Van Ginkel coming at him. He picks him up and blitz pickup, and Caleb's able to complete that pass for a 1st down. People are going to remember that shit. So I totally agree with you on that. All he's got to do is show that a little bit, and people are going to get his respect. So I don't know, Tim, you got any? I know I kind of rambled on a little bit about the running backs here, but do you have any thoughts on those guys?
the running back room, in my opinion, it's going to have to, like, we don't know what we don't know. And what we don't know is, what are they going to do? How are these guys going to split carries? How are they going to do this? I think that was a big question with everybody, is who's going to be the second string? Is it going to be Roschon Johnson? Is it going to be Kyle Monangai? We don't know. So probably until preseason's over, we're not going to know the answer to that, because they're both going to split time in the preseason, I'm sure of it. And I think we're going to get our question answered of what is Roschon Johnson, because we just don't know. Like, he's shown flashes in moments, especially year one, where it's like, okay, this guy can play. He's never going to blow you away with speed. He's never going to be a burner. He's never going to pick up more than 15 yards. Like, that's not his game. But what exactly is he? What exactly can he do? What is his ceiling, I guess, is what I'm saying. Versus what can Kyle Monangai do? I think he's probably got a little bit more burst and speed than Roschon Johnson does, but Monangai's not really known for those things either. He's more of a power back too, but he's got more wiggle based on what we're told and what we know. Like, he's got a little more, I guess, savvy of a runner would be the right word. So we'll see about that, but I can tell you that the addition of Eric Bieniemy as the running backs coach has been huge for this team. Like, that's one guy. It doesn't matter who's talking at the podium. More times than not, you almost always hear about Eric Bieniemy with these running backs, because you hear them all the time. When somebody posts about training camp, you see something, or any OTA practice or whatever it's been so far, you almost always hear about Eric Bieniemy in there and what he was doing with the running backs, and how you could hear his voice on this play when DeAndre Swift did this, or when Roschon did this, or whatever. You hear about him all the time. Go ahead.
I was just going to say a quick point. Cliff, this is an excellent point. I almost forgot about this. Another thing with him is he's super reliable. He never fumbled once in college, guy. So this is a guy that if you get him on the field and you know he's not going to lose the football for you, you're going to be more prone to give him the rock, So I think he's really going to carve himself out a role here. And Carl says, he said several times, no one has acknowledged it, Rojo's wearing the collar that Luke Kuechly made famous, that net collar that those linebackers wear. They used to wear them a lot in the 90s when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. Luke Kuechly made it famous, he says, which increases blood flow to the brain to prevent concussions. I hope it helps. I hope so, too, because obviously he's had those issues with concussions. I wouldn't be surprised to see Roschon Johnson wear one of those guardian caps all season long throughout the year this year because of his history with concussions. And I want to know if Jaquan Brisker is going to do that, too. It wouldn't be a bad idea on his part either. But go ahead, Tim. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're 100%. He's as reliable as they come when it comes to the football, holding on to the football. So we'll see what happens with it. I guess there's been some talk about DeAndre Swift at these practices so far, but interestingly enough, he was at the podium yesterday, and he was asked about some things. He was asked about Monangai, had nothing but good things to say. He's been asked a lot about last year and his unhappiness of how the season went. And some of that was on his own play that he didn't do enough, but most of it was on just the team just wasn't very good. So what is there, like, for him? It's in this season, things need to be better. And what can he do to get there? And somebody asked him, did that make you work any harder in the offseason? And he made a point that I thought kind of stood out to me, which was, no, I didn't really work any harder. I worked as hard as I always do. Why should I change how hard I work based on how disappointed I was with myself last year? I should always be working that hard. That stuck with me because I 100% agree with that. And I think that sometimes that does seem to, it does happen with people. And it's not just NFL players, anybody in any sport or anything we do in life. Sometimes we tend to get complacent. And it takes something like a struggle or whatever for us to say, okay, I need to work harder at this because I don't want this to happen again, instead of just the constant attitude of always striving to be better in everything that we do and always working hard to improve at whatever we're doing. So I thought that was a really good answer from him. And I hope that is actually the case, that he does feel that way, and he didn't change anything just because of how last season went, that he has worked that hard. Because it's only going to help this offense. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. DeAndre Swift is incredibly important to this team right now. If DeAndre Swift goes out for whatever reason, that running back room is in major trouble. It's in major trouble.
I think an injury to any of those top 3 guys is really burdensome, really. And even Homer to an extent, because he's such a core guy on special teams. I think the only way he doesn't make the team is if one of those other guys takes on his role on teams.
Right. Which could potentially be Roshan Johnson, who has also been pretty good on special teams.
Plays a lot of teams, just a different role. So I don't think he's just got a different gig in essence, but I don't think he's going anywhere either, obviously. So I think it's more along the lines of like, can Ian Wheeler step up and take on that role? Because if he can, I think he's got a better shot to make the roster. I'm not sure. I'm not as confident that he can do so, especially considering the fact he really hasn't practiced much yet. So, but anyways, I want to kind of roll along here because we're getting short on time. We only got about 15 minutes left.
Wow, time has gone crazy fast. I looked on. I was like, no way we've gone through 47 minutes of the show already.
By tonight. So a couple things I want to mention real quick. As Aldo says, if there's any questions you guys have for us here in the chat, Bears related, especially right now with the last few minutes we have here, let's get to them if we can. And also,
I want to address this comment real quick because I've never seen this guy. I've never seen Jimmy Thompson in the chat before.
Yes.
And I just want to come. Thank you for the comment there about got great stuff going on here. I don't know if you're talking about our show or just the bar room in general, but either way, we appreciate the comment. We appreciate the support. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Jimmy. But as I was going to say, as alongside of the questions for the Bears questions that we got going on at the end here, you guys see I've got my Ozzy shirt on. If you guys aren't familiar, Ozzy Osbourne passed away the other day. They're going to have a eulogy for him right after our show. Mike North and Joe Mandel, another someone famous just died episode is going to be on.
Somebody big just died.
Say it again.
Somebody big just died.
What did I say?
Somebody just died or something like that. I have no idea what you said.
Big just died. I don't know what I said, but somebody big just died. Yeah, sorry about that. Somebody famous just died is what I said. Whatever. Same difference. Anyways, but the show is coming on right after this. They're going to be eulogizing Ozzy, like I said. Mike North and Joe Mandel, good guys, good parts of the show. Mike North is a iconic guy here in Chicagoland area. He's very famous for his media work. So, like I said, check that out after our show, guys. It'll be on about 15 minutes after we get done at 8:15 Central Time. So, just to kind of, like I said, in regards to Ozzy, I've got my shirt on here. So if you guys, we'll talk about a little bit of Ozzy stuff here at the end of our show too, maybe 5-10 minutes or so. Any kind of music stuff like that you guys want to dig into. If you got any favorite Ozzy songs or any interesting Ozzy stories that you want to talk about, I'll probably talk a little bit about Black Sabbath and a couple of his guitar players he's played with in his career, in his music career and whatnot. So we'll try to make it quick. We'll spend about 5-10 minutes on that at the end. So last thing I want to talk about before we get to your Bears questions, though, is that left tackle battle. And I'll try to make this quick. It just seems to me like from what I've seen that I think Ozzy Trapillo really has the inside track here to get this job. And the main reason I say that is because we're 3 days into camp already. We haven't seen Braxton Jones able to perform with the first team yet. That is not a good sign for him, in my opinion, because we're already getting into this thing. And if they're going to see that either Ozzy or Amagaji gives them enough, is playing a high enough level that they're happy with, I don't see them trying to make a change there. I do think that, like I said before, that the inside track is starting to lean towards Ozzy, a guy that was brought in by not just Ryan Poles and his regime, but also by Ben Johnson and his coaching staff's regime. So I just think it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of people talking. Joe Tooney mentioned he's a guy who seems like a vet with how he's ahead of his way. I believe it was Tooney that said that about him. He's like ahead of his ways, the way he knows his playbook and whatnot. He's just a mature kid, a smart kid. And, he's obviously very gifted. He's big, strong, and massive individual. So I think he's got a clearly superior anchor to what we've seen from Braxton Jones, at least on his college tape. So, we'll have to see how that translates, but I have a lot better faith that it'll be, more effective in the league than Braxton's has been. So we'll wait and see. But that's kind of where I'm leaning towards. Tim, do you have any last thoughts on those guys in that competition before we move on here to the questions?
Nope. Well said so far.
All right. Well, There are only a couple Bears questions in here, so let's get to them. Cliff wants to know what's the best and worst thing about practice so far. I'd say the best thing that we've seen is defense is playing well. The defense is showing, Tremaine Edmonds had an interception the very first play of training camp.
Didn't he return it for a touchdown too?
As far as I know, yes, I believe.
That's the way I understood it too.
Not that that's a huge deal. There's probably guys letting up at the end of the play. It's training camp practice, so who knows? I mean, with these guys, they're really pushing them to go hard all the time. So they maybe not. I could be wrong about that, but in any case, that's the big thing to me is the defense has played well. We've heard about a lot of pass breakups. Jalen Johnson hasn't been practicing yet because he's got an injury he's dealing with, but that's a good thing because we've seen an opportunity for guys like Terrell Smith and Tyreek Stevenson, and apparently that guy, I think it's Nashawn Garrett, I think is his name, guy who spent some time in Dallas with defensive backs coach Al Harris, who's with the Bears now, and he was also I think he was in Minnesota last year. But the guy has been working a lot with the first team, so they and not just now here in camp, but also back in the spring. So that's kind of an intriguing thing going on there with him. It makes me wonder what's going on with Smith. Maybe they'll have him transitioning more towards a safety role, as I've speculated about in the past. So I would say that to me is the best thing is the way the defense is playing. The worst thing is the overreactions to what everybody's seeing statistically. But as far as like on the field stuff, I would say just that I would like to see them come together. It's going to take some time, but I'm not going to criticize it because it will take time. But yeah, I mean, if there's one thing you could say that's not great so far, it's that there hasn't been a whole ton of success on offense yet. So, but again, I'm not surprised by that, and it's not a big deal to me yet. So, what about you, Tim? He wants to know best and worst that you've seen.
Well, I agree. The defense is definitely a good positive, but I would also say Caleb throwing interceptions has been one of the best for me because that means that they're slinging it. They're giving him a chance to go out there and chuck the ball down the field and make plays, which is big for me. Like, let this guy practice doing that. Let's see what we can come up with during the season. Like, that's huge for me. Give him chances. The worst for me would obviously be just that things aren't necessarily looking all that great on the offense, but I don't even want to put that in there because it doesn't matter right now. I don't care about what it looks like right now. Here in several weeks and into the season, if it still looks bad, then we have a problem. But right now, it's so early. We need to stop worrying about this kind of crap and not just let it play out. But I don't even want to talk about that anymore. So, but we can move on to the next question here. Cliff is asking, who would you rather have? Oh, I'm sorry. We'll do D. Stearns. It's on screen here. Have you compared New England May practices to BJ Caleb practices?
Haven't even heard about New England's practices.
I haven't either. I personally haven't even looked into it. So I don't want to give you an answer because I haven't seen it yet. So, Cliff, who would you rather have on the 53, Keenum or the 53rd worst guy? This one is kind of, I guess, context would matter, situation would matter. Like, depends on who the 53rd worst guy is. Is it somebody who is going to make a difference on teams? He could make a difference on the roster if somebody gets hurt.
Well, I think it depends on week and it depends on injuries and all that kind of stuff. It just depends and match up all that. It all is part of it. One thing I think is important to keep in mind too is that new rule for the emergency third quarterback, a guy that's on your practice squad, can be elevated to the active roster on game day as the emergency third quarterback. So the past regime did not utilize that as much, if at all, if I'm not mistaken. They might not have used it at all, but I would not be surprised if Ben Johnson and this staff takes a different approach to that, especially having two quality backup quarterbacks on the roster. So I will be definitely keeping an eye on that throughout the season, but that is a really good question, Cliff. So moving on.
It's tough to say for sure. That's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. It's a tough one, but that's like I said.
I'll put it to you this way. If you gave me a specific player versus Case Keenum, that would be easier for me to say yes or no, whether I thought Case Keenum was the better option to keep it at the last 53-man roster spot or not.
Waldo, that's an interesting question, too. He wants to know if the Bears put Bage on the practice squad, would they lose him? I think they would. I think he's shown enough on
immediately he'd be gone.
Both the regular season, preseason, and whatever else that, like, and plus,
for two reasons.
teams have intel. They've got scouts who are watching this stuff, pro scouts. So he's put enough out there to where if he's on the practice squad, somebody's going to snatch him up. I mean, that's not a difficult decision to make to me, because I mean, what's the downside to that? There really isn't one, especially if you're a team that doesn't have a great backup quarterback situation, or if you're a team that doesn't have a great starting quarterback situation either, for that matter. So why not? What's the downside there? You got nothing to lose. The Bears have everything to lose. If the Bears put them on the practice squad and they lose them, they get nothing for that. So I don't think that would be something they would do.
Well, to me, there'd be two main reasons. Like, number one, like you said, they have intel on him. These teams have seen what he's done. He's shown that he has success at the NFL level and he can win you games. And two, he plays the ultra important position at quarterback. Like, good quarterbacks like that don't come around very often. They're not a dime a dozen. They're like more like a once in a lifetime to find guys like this. Like, it does not once in a lifetime, but you get the point. You know, for every 50 quarterbacks in the NFL, you might find one Tyson Bagent, maybe. So, you know, and granted, like, that's not even the tip of the eye. Like, he's not even at the very pinnacle of quarterback play, but he's a good quarterback and he can win you games. So it's a good question. Very good question. I see a question in here.
Well, I mean, it's kind of similar to what Carl's saying here. I think Bagent has proven his QB2 more worthy of the 53. Sadly, I think Keenum needs to be on the 53 too. And Carl, I mean, that's kind of where I'm kind of leaning to. I basically said the same thing a minute ago as far as keeping an eye on that emergency third quarterback situation, or maybe they just keep both on the 53 altogether. But the fact of the matter, what I've been saying for a while now, I do think that that the Bagent is the backup quarterback of this team. I would be surprised if he wasn't. I just think that it's the off-field stuff with Case Keenum that is so valuable that they've got him here for, more so than like what he's going to offer as a backup quarterback on the field. So I just think that's, you know, that to me, that's the more logical situation here. But yeah, maybe they're both on the 53. And the whole emergency quarterback thing, I would not be surprised to see Ben and his staff utilize that differently than the last staff did. So I'll have my eyes on that as well. And then J2K was asking what's the runway with Case against Bagent. He thinks Poles and Ben would offer him a good backup contract. I think it just depends. I think it depends on how the rest of the season goes. I mean, I think Bagent's going to get an opportunity from somebody else, possibly as a starter, if depending how things go next year with some other teams. But I don't know, though. It's hard to say that. I don't know. I would offer him a contract, but it just depends on what he's willing to take. You know, if he gets an opportunity to start, he's probably going to take that. So he wonders if Case would take a coaching job next year. Maybe. I think it depends on I don't think he's going to sit on the practice squad all year long this year. No. So maybe. I think it just all depends on how these things go. Yeah, that's a big factor here. You're not going to I don't think you're going to keep Case Keenum on the practice squad. So that would be part of the reasoning for keeping him on the 53.
What if the whole reason that Case Keenum was brought on this team was to allow him to have a year in this offense as a player to learn all of the intricacies and how to do it as a player so that they can bring him in as a coach next year to coach it, whatever position that may be, because maybe Ben Johnson's thinking, you know, this offense is going to do so well the next few years that, you know, in a year or two, Declan Doyle is going to get a head coaching job. I'll be promoting my quarterback's coach, JT Barrett, is going to end up being my new offensive coordinator. Maybe I could promote Case Keenum from like a quality control position to now being my quarterback's coach, or he starts off as an assistant QB's coach. Who knows? Like, I could see that scenario being played out. Like, why? And how many times have we heard that Case Keenum? People want Case Keenum to be a coach because he is that type of guy where he could be a great coach. So maybe Ben's got plans for this guy he doesn't even know about yet. Who knows? Interesting thought to think about. You're on mute.
God, I've done that like twice now in 3 weeks. Carl,
your reaction makes me laugh because we can't hear your how you sound. So my first thought is you're like every time you gotta do it.
No, I saw Carl's comment. He's talking about tramadol. How they gave him tramadol from his wisdom teeth removal. I had like a tooth thing happen one time in the past too, and they gave me tramadol. That shit is awful, dude. I thought it was messing me up. You don't want
It's
to take
just
that
sleep.
stuff, dude.
Like,
I
you go into this, like,
totally agree with you, dude. That shit
Yeah.
is messed up, dude. It makes
so
you
I had
feel
it when I had my wisdom tooth taken, one of my wisdom teeth taken out. And you're sleeping, you have this like incredibly vivid dream, but you're like completely tripping out in your dream. It is the weirdest thing ever. You get these terrible night sweats, and you have like this. It's almost like nightmares, just over and over and over again. It is creepy. I trust me. I agree with both of you. It is weird, and I'd never want to be on that again. It is weird, 100%. I totally get it.
So, anyways, guys, we're out of time here. We got that other show coming up here in 15 minutes, so we got to get out of here. Unfortunately, I wanted to kind of eulogize Ozzy a little bit, but that's okay. We'll save that for another time. A lot of good music from Ozzy Osbourne, a lot of great songs, he was with, 3 different great guitar players that all had good hits with him. So, it's like I said, maybe another time we'll get to talk about it next week or something a little bit more, but there is that eulogy coming up right after this about Ozzy with Mike North and Joe Mandel. Somebody big just died right after we get done here. I just want to mention this I wanted to have this on the show tonight, but I forgot to mention it to Aldo earlier. If you guys ever seen the movie Little Nicky, and by the way, Happy Gilmore 2 came out today on Netflix. I can't wait to watch that tonight. But if you guys have ever seen Little Nicky, Adam Sandler movie, he plays the son of the devil. And there's this scene in the movie where he's got this ball. Black Sabbath came first, by the way, Staring, before Led Zeppelin. He's got this ball in the movie, Little Nicky does, and it's played by Adam Sandler. And when he drops it, he's supposed to use his ball in like a moment where he like really needs something he doesn't know what to do kind of thing. So his brother has transformed into this bat, and he's like flying around. He's causing all kinds of chaos. And Adam Sandler drops this ball, and the ball turns into Ozzy Osbourne. And it's just so funny because I think of Ozzy Trapillo. Like whenever I see him, I think of this fucking scene from this movie. But Little Nicky he just responds, Ozzy, as soon as he sees him, and then this bat just goes, holy shit. And then Ozzy bites the fucking bat's head off and spits him in this flask. It's so stupid, but it's hilarious. If you guys haven't seen it, you have to watch Little Nicky. It's a funny-ass movie, but it makes me think, every time I think about Ozzy Trapillo, I think of that scene with Little Nicky and Ozzy Osbourne. But what a great movie. And when the way he says, holy shit, King, yes, it is so hilarious, dude. So, yes, I love that movie. Go check it out if you guys haven't. Ozzy Osbourne. D. Staring real quick wants to know Black Sabbath or Metallica. Sabbath all day, in my opinion. Bigger catalog for Metallica. Absolutely way bigger catalog for Metallica. But Sabbath were innovators, and their music, their great hits were way better, in my opinion, than anything Metallica had. Just my personal preference. Tim's a Metallica guy, though.
It might be your preference, but you're 100% wrong. Like, there is no way Sabbath is better than Metallica. No way. No
Innovators.
way.
They created metal.
And as a band, much more talented musicians also in Metallica than Black Sabbath. And they had some good ones. Yeah, but in totality, it's not close.
Maybe we'll debate that a little bit more next week because we got to go. But in any case, Sabbath was... War Pigs is one of the greatest songs of all time, and that is, again,
it's good. No question. I like their music, but there's no way they're better than Metallica.
So, but anyways, we got to get out of here. Thanks for being here tonight, guys, as always. If you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Like I said, we're here every Friday night for you guys, wherever you get your podcast, but we're here live on YouTube. Again, every Friday night here at 7 Central Time, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, my time, because I'm here on the West Coast. But you can email us, as I said before at the beginning of the show, Willis Twin Towers Podcast at gmail.com. Thank you for that, Aldo. And stick around again, guys. In 10 minutes here, we've got somebody big just died eulogizing Ozzy Osbourne with Mike North and Joe Mandel. So until next week, we'll see you guys. Bear down.
Da Bears.
New and mightier foes will arise. New adventures will begin. And Goku and his fellow warriors will be ready. Until then, we bid you farewell.
The Willis Twin Towers Podcast is a Barroom Network production. Jeff and Tim Willis are the co-hosts and co-producers. Aldo Gandia is executive producer. Music is licensed from Pond 5. Any copyrighted material used was done under the Fair Use Doctrine for commentary, criticism, and informative purposes. All of our programming is available in audio-only format by subscribing to the Barroom Network wherever you download podcasts. Videos are archived on YouTube.